Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of Cabinet, Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday, the 18th of October. First agenda item is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Mr. DeVille. Are there any other declarations of interest? Agenda item 3 is the decision notice of the meeting held on the 20th of September 2023. Is it your wish that I sign those as a correct record of the meeting?
Agreed.
Thank you. At least one person did, and you weren't even there. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is the leaders' update. Ladies and gentlemen, the government's decision to scrap the HS2 project between Birmingham and Manchester will have an impact on residents of Staffordshire. Although we have been opposed to HS2 from the outset, we put a lot of effort in to minimise the impact on our people and the county and to maximise any economic benefits. We understand there must be a cost ceiling for major infrastructure projects, but HS2 has already had a significant irreversible impact on Staffordshire. Completing Phase 1 as planned and delivering the promised shorter journey time for residents are essential. It is crucial to fulfil the wider growth plans for Stafford. We are watching closely for any indications of further investment in Midlands infrastructure projects that could benefit people and businesses in Staffordshire. One of the projects we will argue for investment is in the A50-A500 corridor stretching from Cheshire through Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire into the East Midlands. Major manufacturers along the corridor include JCB and others are at the leading edge of innovation in zero and low carbon power generation and transport. They are supported by academics at Keele University in particular. Government investment in transport, education and training in new business sites along the A50-A500 corridor can convert this corridor into a world-leading zero carbon powerhouse. Over the last few months, council staff have continued to fix potholes, resurface and improve roads across the county. And anybody who was watching the full council meeting last Thursday couldn't help but be impressed at the overwhelming support that was given to the work of the Highways Department. And I thank the Highways Department for their strenuous efforts over the summer to repair those roads, as many as they've done. And if you could pass that on, Mr. Ayres, I'd be grateful. Work is now complete at 2 busy junctions on Eastern Avenue in Lichfield. The resurfacing of the A34 Stone Road in Stafford has also finished. A further £500,000 improvement to the A38 Clay Mills Junction in Burton is fixing drainage, curbs and ironworks and resurfacing the road. Meanwhile, in Leek, work is underway to resurface the road and footpaths on Broad Street. And we are delivering on our promise to fix more roads and improve transport across the county. And I think many people will be noticing the difference. We will just remind ourselves continually that there is more work to do. And we continue to press on and get that delivered. Elsewhere, the average smoker now spends £4,000 a year on the habit. Just think about what you could do with that instead. Promoting the range of stop smoking support available locally from Everyone Health Staffordshire service is also selling the financial and health benefits of kicking the habit. Smoking remains the most preventable cause of ill health, and it was therefore great to hear the Prime Minister announce plans to create a smoke-free generation, stopping the sales of tobacco to under 14s. That was under 18. We will show our support when responding to the government's consultation on the plans, which also include a welcome crackdown on youth vaping, an issue which is, I know, very important to many people. We've also had a busy few weeks on our work to reduce the county's carbon emissions to net zero. We celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Energy Recovery Facility at Four Ashes. Every year we send 300,000 tonnes of waste to the site, where it is converted into enough electricity to power more than 66,000 homes, while also diverting the waste from damaging landfill. Our 43 libraries also got in on the act during Green Libraries Week, hosting exhibitions, author talks, workshops, recycling projects and a community gardening project. So a lot going on across the county. But for now, we now go on to our next item for the morning, which is minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 4th of October. Approved? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item number 6, Staffordshire means back to business, an oral report brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Last month's economic update articulated the progress that we're making on some of our key economic development projects across the county, working with partners in both the private and the public sector. And those projects are pivotal in creating new employment opportunities and continuing to fuel the extremely strong performance that we have in the county in terms of employment rates, which we discuss here regularly and are much better than the regional and national averages. The importance of that also to the regeneration of our towns is key to what we do here in Staffordshire, and everything that we do is in lockstep with the public and private sectors. Having said that, I think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes that economic development work does create local difficulties. And currently, one of our key sites in the county at Chatterley Valley, unfortunately, is on pause due to the insolvency of a subcontractor to Harworths, the developer of the site, meaning that Peacock Hay Road is closed for local road users. And I just wanted to discuss this here. It's a 43-hectare employment site that will bring around 1,700 new jobs and £67 million per year in additional economic activity for the county, predominantly being delivered by the private sector. But nonetheless, that doesn't lessen the inconvenience for local road users when we see a road that's closed for longer than it ought to be because of a subcontractor that has gone out of business. So I just wanted to reassure people in that part of the county that we are working very closely with Harworths, the contractor, to find a new subcontractor to deliver that work. We're hoping it will be back underway very soon. But it is an illustration of the growing pains that we experience when infrastructure is being delivered in our county. Now, that was supposed to be a neat segue into a discussion on HS2, but the Leader of the Council has somewhat spiked my cannons on that one, as he likes to do on occasion. But nonetheless, it is important to note that the cancellation of HS2 is a significant development for our county, both in terms of undoing some of the harm that has been caused in the south of the county with the construction activity that HS2 has had ongoing for some time, and further north in the county along the route of March, where people have had properties compulsory purchased, and there have been worries about blight along that route of March. With limited benefit for Staffordshire in terms of our economy and the people in Staffordshire coming as a result of that. So it is good news to see a change of direction there, which should benefit Staffordshire more. The Leader of the Council's mentioned investment in the A50 500 corridor, which we're awaiting details of, but that is a key economic corridor not only for Staffordshire but also for the wider region and for the country. And it is pleasing that monies previously spent on HS2 have been liberated to invest there. But in addition to that, the announcement around Network North has identified other projects in the county for key investment that we have needed upgrading for some time, particularly Junction 15 of the M6 in Newcastle-under-Lyme, improvements to the A5 between Hinckley and Tamworth, another one of those key east-west interconnectors that flows through Staffordshire, like the A50 500, and also the reopening of the Leek to Stoke railway line, a very big engineering project when that does get underway, and the more straightforward, hopefully, reopening of the Ivanhoe line between Burton and Leicester, currently for freight, but to be reopened for passenger traffic, and with more to come potentially. And I wanted to reassure colleagues that although those announcements have been made already, that we are actively lobbying government in terms of further investment in what is a very busy county that carries a lot of the burden of national economic activity, particularly in terms of transport and logistics, and with some other fantastic investment opportunities that government ought to consider. And we are working hard now and very much at a pace to highlight those other schemes with government that we think would be of real benefit both locally and to the country. I usually like to provide an update on the universal credit claimant count, but I'm afraid that another national decision has meant that I can't do that today, because the Office for National Statistics, in an effort to improve the quality of their labour market information, has delayed the announcement of the universal credit figures for a week. So I'll have to report that posthumously. But we know that the trends in Staffordshire are very good in terms of low unemployment and a high level of demand for our employers for people to come and work with them. So I look forward to providing that information at the next Cabinet meeting. Finally, I'd just like to mention the success of one of our key visitor attractions, the National Memoriam Arboretum, in being named as the best UK attraction at the 2023 Group Leisure and Travel Awards for the third consecutive year. And that's quite an achievement, the third consecutive year. Those awards recognise the best providers, attractions and destinations for groups, and winners are voted for by readers of Group Leisure and Travel magazine. So it is people who actually come and visit these places who voted for this. And in gaining that Best UK Attraction Award, the Arboretum triumphed over impressive competition from visitor attractions such as Windsor Castle, Longleat House and Buckingham Palace. So I think we can feel very proud of the achievements of one of our key attractions here in Staffordshire, in the centre of the country, that people want to visit, and where the infrastructure needs to match the interest that people have in coming to our place. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you. Mr. DeVille.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Really interesting and a very positive report, as always, by the Deputy Leader. Really interesting to see the infrastructure projects. Of course, Philip, I'll look forward to working very closely with Staffordshire Moorlands District Council and other partners on the proposals for the Stoke to Leek Railway. That's really positive. A lot of work to do around that, and look forward to getting on with that. With other infrastructure projects, you see it up and down the county, Leader. Particularly works with utility companies. They can be a source of great frustration to our people of Staffordshire. Just for information, really, we held a meeting about a month ago with Mr. Williams, my colleague, and Mr. Ayres with Severn Trent around the works, around their performance, and around getting the jobs fixed quicker and getting any traffic management off-site quickly. And I think that's really important, and it also shows up that we've got some joined-up thinking with our utility companies, because, of course, essential works are essential, but we do need to work in partnership with utility companies to ensure that this work's done quickly, diligently, and any traffic management is taken away very, very quickly. But thanks again, Councillor White, for a very positive report as per normal.
Councillor Jessel, Councillor Northcott.
Yes, thank you very much. To reinforce Councillor DeVille's comments, very much support that working closer with the utility companies. You know, it is one of the things they are supposed to do is actually put their signs up by roadworks with their contact details. They often fail to do it, so people think it's the county council. I would also challenge the amount of traffic management. You'll get a quarter of a mile of cones for one small, excavation. You go on the continent and they do things in a far more efficient way, so I don't think it's necessarily down to essential health and safety. But very much thank Councillor DeVille and yourself for the work that's been done, and Councillor Williams. In terms of the economic report, reinforce the success of the National Memorial Arboretum, and not least the recent Ride to the Wall event, which attracts thousands, not only of bikers but spectators. But I understand from a comment that was made at full council that actually the NMA are looking to provide some sort of bus service from Lichfield, because I think anything that perhaps alleviates some of the traffic, particularly with Chetwynd Bridge in the condition that it's in at the moment, I think would actually be really beneficial. It's a tremendous facility on our doorstep, and as I say, they do attract hundreds of thousands of people, but I think anything in terms of transport arrangements, as I say, particularly with Chetwood Bridge, because that actually is significantly restricting traffic flows. Thank you.
Councillor Northcott and then Councillor Williams, if you could just talk to the NMA transport arrangements, please.
Thank you, Leader. I particularly want to thank the Deputy Leader for an excellent report, and just wish to comment on the expectations of improvement to the infrastructure from the HS2 point of view, and the fact that there's been a change of tune there. I'm delighted to hear that the Deputy Leader is on top of the work in terms of lobbying government for improvement to infrastructure, particularly those that have been identified as areas that need significant improvement, such as the Blackbrook Junction on the A51, A53 in Newcastle, a part of the HS2 negotiations, and hope that in the future that will bear fruit in terms of lobbying for the government and Central for the money to do that long overdue work. So yes, an excellent report. I endorse it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Yeah, just to clarify with the NMA and the public transport offer, basically we've been working with the NMA for some time. We're going to be looking for the provision of the actual vehicle, and they are going to run it for us. This is a really, really good partnership that we're able to bring to for our residents, and it will actually be in it's really near enough finished, and we'll be hoping to deliver that quite soon. So real positive there that people will be able to get to and from that. And in regards to Chetwynd Bridge, I understand people's concerns, but we have to remember that that bridge is the second oldest iron bridge within the country. We need to make sure it's there for perpetuity. The work that's gone on has been recognised nationally as extremely good engineering-wise, and we are looking for, obviously, to ensure that we can then get funding for another bridge to help with that. So it is a real positive on both sides.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so a lot of very good points made. Just a small personal point. I got caught up in the ride to the wall, driving down to Warwickshire to see some family friends, and it's a rare occasion where you can say it was a pleasure to be stuck in a traffic jam, because they make a marvellous sight and a marvellous sound as well with their bikes, and the cause that it's in aid of is impeccable. But it does illustrate this point about Staffordshire being a place that people want to come and visit, want to come and do business in, and want to come and live in. And the infrastructure investment opportunities at this particular time are greater than they have been for a while, and we will strain every sinew to make sure that we're achieving as much benefit for Staffordshire people as we can in that. And that is our bottom line with all of this activity that goes on. Utility companies, we could have a whole cabinet on their activities, and I think they could be better regulated. But there are some benefits that are sort of unfelt, aren't they? You want gas pipes and electricity and water supply to be there, but you don't want your road dug up to have them installed or renewed. But the other infrastructure that we're talking about has to benefit Staffordshire people first and foremost, and that's always our bottom line. A lot of people want to put things through our county. Our bottom line is that whatever happens here, we have to have benefit for our people, and that is always the first priority of this council. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. A great report. Agenda item number 7 is the Integrated Performance Report Quarter 2. This is our quarterly look at how we're getting on. I'd ask Councillor Parry just to do the majority of the introduction, then I'll be speaking to taking points from portfolio holders in turn, just highlighting those areas of success and concern. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everyone. I'll kick off with an update on the financial situation, and then hopefully pass over to Cabinet colleagues to take over their own portfolio report. We obviously continue to work hard to ensure that the financial position of the County Council remains one of stability and durability. And that's because I believe we take a longer-term approach to our finances and are prepared to take appropriate steps in the past and in the present to ensure that stability continues. We are obviously continuing to operate in a macroeconomic environment which have conditions outside our control. This morning's inflation rate remains stubborn at 6.7%, and we like to see some inflationary pressures we assume, around costs of energy moving forward towards winter, and particularly towards the uncertainty in the Middle East. In terms of our own finances, therefore, at the moment we are projecting a 7.7% overspend at the financial year end. This compares to the quarter one, the last quarter, of 9.5 million overspend, so a reduction in that period. Some of that is due to savings that have been made in other areas of the council. In particular, we've got a saving of £3.4 million from the Health and Care Directorate, and across that there are a number of areas of break-even, of underspend or delayed spending in a basket of savings, in a sense. And that directorate continues to be to have strong financial controls, and again strong durable finances, which is really pleasing to see. Should mention a couple of things within that directorate, though. In terms of the COVID funding, you remember COVID, folks, a few years ago. There was a fund, the COVID Outbreak Management Fund, of which there was 9.7 million, which is brought forward into the current financial year. 3.4 of which has been spent, but that leaves 6.2 million to be spent, and there is a deadline for the use of this fund, or otherwise terrible things will happen, such as we would have to return it. However, good news in that there has been a set of proposals brought forward where the funds will be directed. These include work on health inequalities, expansion of the Warmer Homes programme, Health Visitor Transformation Fund, and crucially Drugs and Alcohol Complex Needs Multi-Service building in Cannock. So a range of things there which will be brought back to Council and reported on in May next year to ensure that that fund has been spent and allocated appropriately and in line with the criteria before the deadline of September 2024. There is also an additionality of funding from government for the Market Sustainability and Improvement Fund, nattily titled, as our Director of Finance would say, of 570 million ring-fenced in 2023-24, and 24-25 a further amount of 3.65 million allocated the current year, of which Staffordshire would get 5.3 million. And this has been added to the adult social care budgets. We'll also provide a report early next year on the progress of this spending, which is to enable additional support for the workforce within social care. And that's very welcome funding indeed. Moving on to children and families, which is where I think the greatest pressure currently exists within the finances of the County Council. We're forecasting an overspend of 11.5 million. 8.7 million, it comes from children and care budget, and the number of children in care currently sits at 1,382. We're projecting that to reduce given the interventions and support that the County Council is putting in place. And Cabinet have been very focused on this in the last 12 months or so, ensuring that we've got the right strategy, the right approach and the right grip. And Cabinet is increasingly satisfied that we are moving this in the right direction, and hopefully we'll see results coming through quite soon. But the cost of that 8.7 million certainly comes from the number of children in care. We do receive some support for children who are unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. But the cost of care itself, of course, increases. And that's not just volume related, but also there's an element of inflationary pressures on that as well, and competition pressures. So that continues to be a concern which we are focusing on significantly currently and in the future. The second part of that story, in a sense, is special educational needs, and the cost of transportation for children with special educational needs that require help getting to and from their education establishment. This is overspent at the moment by £2.8 million, and again it's an area where the County Council is trying to see if there are efficiencies and improvements which will benefit children but also ensure that the taxpayers' money is efficiently spent. There's a small amount of pressure around the educational psychology service of around £300,000. Also attached to the special educational needs is the high needs block. And this is a really serious situation in the sense that it's an issue that affects almost every council across the sector that deals with special educational needs, in that the demand is certainly outstripping the amount of cash available to fund it. And this means that we are currently in a situation where a £20 million current overspend added to the previous deficit could see by the end of the year a £30 million deficit. In a sense, this is a problem which is experienced by, as I say, councils across the sector. It's at the moment supported by the fact that the government have in place a statutory override which requires that accumulated total it is ring-fenced and is separated from the council's other reserves. So at the moment it sits outside our reserves, but that pressure sits there almost as a ticking time bomb, in a sense that that could come into councils, not just this council but most councils' finances, if that statutory override was removed. That's unlikely to be the case. The current override extends through to 2025-26. I would expect that to be either extended or some additionality of funding that removes that threat over every council that is dealing with special educational needs at the moment. There is certainly a need for something to change in that area, in the way that that area of children's support is provided and funded. And finally, Leader, the rest of my report is that there is a satisfactory and stable position in almost every other directorate across the council, where budgets are balanced or potentially underspent. Almost every area is in that position, which is a satisfactory state to be in, that we have that level of control on budgets across the council, that we don't have necessarily any further concerns there. So I would like to offer my thanks on behalf of Cabinet to budget holders across the county for their hard work in ensuring that we remain balanced in those budgets, and to our Director of Finance, who is obviously overseeing that. Thank you.
Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader. And following on from what Councillor Perez has said, dealing with the children's services area, and as he says, the main focus of the budget pressures are around children in care, and particularly those that are placed in residential care, where the higher costs are, and invariably the outcomes for those children are not as good as when they are with foster carers, or where we can try and work hard to get them back home with their families. So to address those demand issues, regular reviews are undertaken to look at the barriers that exist to moving those children to more appropriate care, and we have a new discharge planning team that is in place looking at those, and we regularly review the children that are in our care to ascertain that where they are is the most appropriate place. As we go through the rest of the year, the additional capacity and the finances that Cabinet approved, that additional investment will see those existing posts being filled and the recruitment for the new posts taking place. The actual number of children in care is starting to reduce, although this is skewed a little bit by the amount of children who are unaccompanied asylum seekers that we have to place in care. Moving on a little bit from that, we have been chosen by the Department of Education to be one of 10 local areas to deliver a major government pilot scheme around transforming children's social care. And that family network pilot will be rolled out locally in spring of next year. On the building, what was previously known as the Building Resilient Families programme, which is now supporting families, we are well on schedule for that. During Q1, 438 families have achieved a successful and sustained outcome, and that absolutely improves outcomes for those children and clearly helps to prevent those children coming into social care and need for that. The household support fund that we manage support families and others who most in need to pay for food and energy bills, and during the summer holidays almost 28,000 families of children receipt of free school meals were issued with e-vouchers, and over 5,600 families benefited from a professional referral scheme. Care leavers also benefited from the first of 4 £50 vouchers, and through the Winter Warmth Project, eligible residents have started to receive the first payment of £300. And also during the summer holidays, over 49,000 places were offered for children on the holiday activities and food programme. And one other positive note, we have recently launched the House project, which is a scheme to help care leavers into a home of their own that they rent, working together in small groups to support each other, and was fortunate enough to go to the launch of that. But that's a very positive way of ensuring that children who have been in our care, who are now care leavers, have a stable future going forward. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. I would appeal to people who use the holiday activities and food programme. If you get the opportunity to do it, please do it. We do get quite a few people who put their names forward and then don't turn up, and it's depriving someone else of a slot. So please, when it does come round, if it comes round again, then take it up. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Leader. As Councillor Parry has articulated extremely well, the pressures on the High-Needs block do continue, but linking SEND and the improvements on the High-Needs block is our accelerated progress plan that we agreed the implementation of the specialist provision and our educational healthcare needs assessment pathway in Cabinet last month. So I look forward to bringing future updates as to our impact of these on the outcomes for children, as well as the pressures that continue on our budget. I thought I'd also take this opportunity this morning just to talk about or highlight the prospective work of the school organisation team, along with the strategic property, who have successfully delivered 2 projects for the start of the autumn term. St Leonard's Primary School in Stafford has successfully moved from a limiting Victorian building into the refurbished building at the former Kingston Centre, with on-site school playing facilities, something they didn't have previously. This generates additional places for the houses being built in that particular area. I also have the pleasure of opening the Anna Seward Primary School in Lichfield, our newest primary school. This is a culmination of around £60 million worth of investment in our schools across the county to create an additional 2,600 new school places by expanding schools and opening 6 brand new primaries since 2019. We continue to invest in our schools as work is well underway to open a further new primary schools in September 2024, 2 in Tamworth, 1 in Stafford, and a further new school in Burton. Including these 4 new primary schools, we have plans to invest £151 million to deliver around 5,500 additional school places over the next 5 years. And the school organisation team continues to review the population growth and housing developments, working with developers and the different borough and district councils so that we have enough school places across the county to meet the changes in the need for school places. And this is how we've been able to have such an excellent track record around offering over 94% secondary first choice places for parents and their children. And primary school, we are over 95% first choice places. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Jessel?
Can I just ask a question on the school buildings first before I then move into mine?
Of course.
Because I think it's such really good news about all these new school developments and the investment. I think for young families, it really is a concern if they don't feel that they can get access to a good local school. And, you know, it's a long time since I had very young children, but I can remember how difficult it was. And at the end of the day, and this is 30 years ago, we ended up moving. The thing that I'd like to know is, obviously, young children grow up and senior school places. And again, I know it's an area of concern for parents is access to good local senior schools and how that programme is progressing. In my area, we're well served with the John Taylor Free School. But, you know, are you satisfied there are deliverable plans in place to ensure that there's that educational provision for older school children?
I am where there are gaps, and we do gap analysis around school places as well, and that's where the organisation team is extremely good. There is plans to build a secondary school within Stafford. You're also aware of the one in Rugeley as well, which is making good headway. We should have some news on that soon. So I am satisfied that we do have the right provision secondary across the county currently.
Councillor DeVille, was it a question to Councillor Price, or was it? No. Councillor Jessel, please.
Thank you very much. Well, within health and care, there's good news and bad news. I'll start with, it's not bad news, but I'm not where we would like to be. And I think it's fair to say that both with safeguarding and deprivation of liberty, we're not quite where we would wish to be in terms of the waiting times for that. In terms of safeguarding cases, about 86% of cases that are referred to us are dealt with very rapidly within their initial management, and it's about 14% of those cases that go on to further investigation and a Section 42. There has been additional investment made to address the backlog, but we do need to ensure that our systems and processes are as efficient as possible, because it's not only dealing with the volume in the timely way, but it's also ensuring that the quality of those assessments is where it needs to be, i.e. excellent. So I think in terms of offering Cabinet colleagues assurance, I'm assured that actually the initial assessments are done in a timely way, which is how it should be in terms of managing any risk. But we do need to undertake some further work to make sure that we deal with all these cases in a very timely and a high quality way. The target is to have no more than a week's work open at the end of any 1 week. And at the moment, we're getting between 300 and 350 safeguarding concerns referred to us weekly. That doesn't mean that safeguarding has suddenly increased as a major issue within our society, but I do think it indicates that there's a greater awareness and we're getting more referrals because of that. And as I say, 86% of those referrals are actually dealt with in the initial management stage. In terms of deprivation of liberty, I won't repeat, we were waiting for a change in legislation that would have made it a far simpler process. There has to be 6 assessments by 2 different professionals, so it is a very bureaucratic process. Again, we're looking at options to streamline that process, and with additional investment as well, we do need to ensure that we reduce that waiting time. In terms of good news, In terms of our brokerage, that's the time at the service in terms of providing people with their packages of care. It can be in a residential or care home or with home care packages. That now is the best performance that we've had for 3 years, which is really good news because, again, it does cause people distress, their families, carers, if we can't get those timely packages of care in place. But within that, I do have to do, supported living is still an area of challenge, making sure that there's the right kind of accommodation available for people who want to take up the supported living option. The other good news is in terms of our Care Act assessment. The volumes are slightly up on last year, but again, we've exceeded our target, which again is really good news. There are some financial pressures, but overall we're living within a balanced budget. There is some financial pressure within learning disabilities, but there are other elements, Care Act assessments, where there are some savings. What we have been able to do is with the Market Sustainability and Improvement Fund funding of 5.4 million, that has enabled us as an authority to increase the fee rates to adult social care providers, and particularly for providers of home care services, it's enabled us to have a fee uplift of 9.5%. This is really important because the people who deliver that well-needed service rely on their cars. And as we know, the cost of fuel, etc., has risen significantly. It's also enabled us to improve workforce capacity and retention, and obviously that's being driven by our strategy, our workforce strategy that we've developed with providers of services and with our NHS colleagues. And it's helped us reduce the waiting times for adult social care packages. So that's the good news. I know I mentioned it at full council, but the Warmer Homes Initiative, the additional 10.4 million, is again helping us to help people improve the insulation, the energy efficiency of their home, improve their heating. That has a double-pronged effect. It saves people a lot of money, but it also improves their health. Living in a cold, damp house is not good for anyone's health. And this is being particularly targeted at rural properties that are off-grid, which for Staffordshire is quite a widespread occurrance. The one area that we've slipped is on supported living, the recommissioning of those services. That's mainly due to there is a new pricing matrix, and we wanted to make sure before we went out to procurement that actually we weren't prejudicing small and medium-sized organisations in favour of large ones. So we've done some adjustment to make sure we've got it right before we go out to procurement, and that has caused slippage in that timescale. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Williams.
No questions, sorry. This is my department. This is just for me.
Oh, right. I was
No. So when it comes to highways and transport, obviously we've been working very hard to ensure that we can mend more roads and make sure that our transport links are as better as possible. August the 1st was the date that we signed our enhanced partnership, and that has already proven really useful in the fact that there was a bus service that was due to be cancelled in Codsall, and through the partnership we've enabled another company to take that on partially, so that has meant that those links are still being made. We are always working with our bus companies, and we will continue to do so. When it comes to the highways, I think realistically, especially after when we've been to full council on Thursday, it was a bit of a success story in the fact that we are already 90% complete with our preventative maintenance training, surface dressings, which means that 50,000 square metres of micro surface treatment has been done. We're also already within the 50% mark of fixing the 2,000 extra potholes that we were going to be fixing from member priorities, and actually seen an overall reduction in the amount on the work stack, which is huge and something that we've been able to do within our financial budgets, and we haven't gone over budget anywhere at all. To make sure that we are aware of the fact that we're not being complacent, we did have a huge amount of Category 1 defects right at the start of the year. However, we have now gone back up to benchmarks and exceeded our benchmark of repairing defects within the area, which is really, really good. And we are tackling the demand with we have now finished over 1.2 million square metres of surface treatment across the county. That equates to around 120 miles of carriageways. We've also completed most of our capital maintenance programmes. We've got 4 actually working at the moment, with 3 being planned in to be finished, as well as the monies that have gone into the Levelling Up Fund, including the Branston Interchange. The work in Cannock is now completed up the A34, and I think most people who travel up that area will be able to see a massive difference. And that has continued all the way through Huntington, past Pottlepool. We're now coming into Stafford, and that is on track to what we are going to be able to achieve, and a real benefit for the people of Staffordshire. Highways is not, we're not complacent in what we do. We know we've got work to continue with, and we will be starting our winter works with the gritters, which will be starting now. So just to be aware of that those people who go on the gritters are the people who do the works on the roads. When we start in earnest, that will mean a reduction in the amount of defects that we can repair, but also remembering that in certain times of the year, the weather is a precluder to enable us to do proper, full, permanent repairs. They are usually more temporary repairs over the winter, but we then go to attack within the summer months. I have to say that the Pothole Pro has been working really well up north and has done a huge amount of work, and we will be reporting on that on a regular basis through our press and PR system, to be able to make people and get residents more happy with what we're showing them, to reassure them that we are doing the works. And I know that the communications, especially through the My Staffs app, has really improved that to such an extent that I'm even being told we're giving them too much information now rather than less. But that isn't the case and for everybody, and actually it really is working well. We are looking at different methods of innovation, and these are now coming to fruition, and we're looking at that. And also possible ways that we can also improve the amount of defects that we are removing. But I am changing the vernacular from potholes, because until it gets to a Category 2 or a Category 1, it's not really classified as a pothole, it's a defect. So our defect reduction has increased dramatically. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman. And may I thank Mr Parry for bringing this really positive report this morning, and the team. And to report on a good and balanced budget is massively important and massively refreshing, isn't it? And it's not something that just happens, Chairman, is it? It's a result of very prudent financial planning and sheer hard work. And I think Councillor Price was talking about the really exciting schools development programme that we have. That's great. That gives parents the necessary choice, and it gives, importantly, gives young people excellent facilities in which to learn. So we'll carry on with these projects, the important projects that the Deputy Leader was talking about earlier, the infrastructure projects, the projects that Mr Williams is talking around, around infrastructure, around innovation within highways. And Chairman, I think the good people of Staffordshire can rest assured that we'll always look after the people who need it most, the vulnerable people that Mrs Jessel was talking about. We'll always spend money in that area as necessary. We'll continue with these really exciting projects, but we'll spend our money prudently. And as Mr Williams said, there's no complacency on our part. I don't think there's any room for complacency. and we'll just carry on running the council in a very prudent way, looking after the people who need it most and continuing with these great infrastructure projects. If I may very, very briefly just highlight one real achievement within the household waste recycling sites. The teams across the 14 sites have been shortlisted for a Team of the Year award. Now, yeah, that's great, isn't it? It's just a sign of how far that service has moved in such a short time. And I'd be grateful, Mr. Ayres, if you could pass on our thanks and our congratulations to the teams across the 14 sites. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And that photograph of the team, I think, in Burntwood, is it? Yeah, that's almost become an iconic image of the hard workers of the Staffordshire County Council's household waste recycling centres. It's absolutely excellent. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. So in relation to culture, rural and safer communities, the countryside estates, we've got recruitment in progress for the vacant country park manager role, and a job offer has been made. The anticipated start date now will be January 2024. We have a slight problem there with short-term capacity. In terms of our public rights of way, the proposed approach to manage the network is being developed, and the review aims to address the risks environment and countryside and legal services are carrying in relation to right-of-ways due to backlogs. So while the right-of-way review is looking at potential ways to address issues across the network, the team does have limited capacity to manage the review and service delivery. And we are experiencing more challenges and notices that are requiring us to take enforcement action on the network. These can incur some additional costs, for example, for legal support, plus costs of undertaking action on the ground, for example, if we have to get contractors to remove obstructions on the rights of way. Good news in libraries, we've had a fantastic response to our summer reading challenge. We've exceeded our starter and completer target, and the full evaluation is now complete. We had 10,675 children sign up to the summer reading challenge, which is a 7% increase on the last year. 6,358 children actually completed the challenge, which is a 5% increase on last year. 402 school interactions took place via physical and virtual visits. 47,495 books were read or listened to, and 70% of children surveyed said that they were better readers because of the challenge. 314 volunteers supported the challenge with over 1,168 volunteering hours, and 286 events took place across our libraries with 5,705 children and 4,266 adults attending sessions. And good news in Loggerheads. Loggerhead Library has transferred to Loggerheads Parish Council, who have taken up the management of the library, and they've shared very positive feedback about how they've been supported by our library team. I'd like to offer my thanks to our team for all the work that they do for us year in and year out in this county. In terms of trading standards, the County Council has incurred costs for cattle that's in our care due to delays in the court system. These costs have included legal fees, feed, vet and housing costs for the seized cattle, and this pressure is offset somewhat by one-off staffing vacancies in the library service and will continue to be monitored as we move through the financial year. Good news, though, for trading standards in that we have managed to make seizures worth £18,161 last month, and the raids, which were at 4 premises in Newcastle and Uttoxeter, resulted in the seizure of 1,397 illegal single-use nicotine inhaling vapes. Some of these vapes with 9,000 puffs actually are 7 times the legal limit, so that's excellent work undertaken by our County Council officers. Moving on to our start-up hubs, we managed to secure £64,000 of Arts Council England funding to enable the development of start-up hubs at all 16 managed and 14 community-managed libraries. Work continues establishing hubs in community managed libraries and business enterprise support, providing drop-in support in targeted libraries to support those looking to start a business that's in progress. The libraries team is in discussion again with Arts Council England about submitting a further funding bid to expand the scope of the hubs to deliver a more targeted offer. Great news about the History Centre. Construction remains on track with excellent engagement and positive feedback over the summer through events at our libraries during outreach days and focus groups. During July and August, we engaged with 874 people on this project. During June, volunteer hours totalled 370 hours, and during July, volunteer hours increased to 412. The July volunteer hours provide an in-kind cost equivalent with a value of £8,250 towards the project. Cabinet approval with regards to the community strategy is going to be commencing in November with a joint working group that's been established to progress this. There'll be engagement taking place between November and January, and that will include a resident survey that's going to go out, a member engagement, web presence and online engagement to capture the community stories, and face-to-face engagement events with communities across all districts of Staffordshire County. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So, as they say, you save the best till last. Great progress in your portfolio. Councillor Parry, was there anything you wanted to sum up with before we move on?
Mainly on our revenue budget this morning, apart from the fact we've mentioned already the school building programme. It's worth mentioning, I think, important that we mention that we have a capital programme of nearly £140 million, or £136 million, should I be more accurate. And of that, 68 million is spent on our highways. On top of the revenue money that we spend each year, there's an additional £68 million being spent on our roads and infrastructure, as well as £46 million virtually being spent on our schools in terms of improving schools and building schools. So good news around a large capital programme that we are also managing. With that, Chair.
Thank you, and a very useful reminder of the scale of the investment that Staffordshire County Council undertakes across the entire county, into our roads, into our schools, into the things that people really want, and I'm delighted to see that investment starting to bear fruit. To Cabinet colleagues, thank you for your diligence and hard work, and thank you to senior leadership team and your officers for the amount of work you do to run this organisation. It's a tough job, and the problems never stop coming, but we tackle them as they come up, and we continue to deliver. And this report is that sort of honest look at where we are as an organisation. We should keep honest about it and keep interrogating ourselves about how we can perform better. So I'm always pleased to see the integrated performance report come forward, and that portfolio holders are on top of their subject in the way that they are. That concludes that agenda item. We've got, I think, a recommendation. Let me just check. Yeah, the recommendation is simply that we note and challenge performance and advise of any further information and or action required, which I think we've done more than adequately. All those in favour? Thank you. Agenda item number 8 is the forward plan of key decisions. First of all, in November in public, half-yearly Treasury Management Report brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry. In private, additional nursing capacity brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Again in private, provision of a waste transfer facility brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg. Moving forward to December in public, the medium-term financial strategy 24-29 brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. In public, older people commissioning strategy brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Provision of services for children and young people brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. And then in December in private, Families, Health and Wellbeing 0 to 19 services, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. Drug and Alcohol Services, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Moving forward into January in private, unregulated placements, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. In public, medium-term financial strategy 24-29, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry. Moving forward to February, in public, integrated performance report, quarter 3, 23-24, brought to you by myself and the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry. And then into March, in private, Burton Regeneration, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, Councillor Wilson. And in public, the Capital Programme for Schools 24-25, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and Send, Councillor Price. In public again, the Children and Young People's Emotional Health and Wellbeing Service, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. And that is the forward plan of key decisions. Agenda item 9 is exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following likely items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A, as amended, of the Local Government Act 1972, indicated below.